In 2012, the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 were coming to the end of their life cycles. One game that was able to make its mark before fading away into near obscurity, where it ended up being a cult classic, was Dragon's Dogma. Later ported to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 under the title Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, that was packed with all its post-launch content, it still remained a cult classic, but that's the original version I played. I wasn't a huge fan at first. I thought the game kind of grew boring once you reached the first city, and after a few hours, I just wasn't into it. And I'm kind of ashamed to admit that it took me until 2024 to finally get Dragon's Dogma. I played Dark Arisen the week leading up to the release of Dragon's Dogma 2, and something finally clicked. Dragon's Dogma had a vision of being this hybrid of modern and classic fantasy role-playing games. It wanted to be a game where the player would travel a world that wanted to be explored, and that narrative was altered and crafted by the player. However, the original had a budget that could not fully support the game it wanted to be. It was a miracle that we even got Dragon's Dogma in the first place. Capcom was already struggling with its powerhouse franchises in 2012. You had Street Fighter X Tekken, which just was a disappointment and just a mess. Resident Evil 6, it was a dud, and it's one of the worst in the franchise. And the Devil May Cry reboot was subject to fan outcry and backlash, even though the game hadn't even come out yet. However, Capcom took a shot with Dragon's Dogma. Maybe it could help fill that void that Skyrim left for some players who were just new to the fantasy RPG genre. Dragon's Dogma ended up reviewing pretty okay, with a 75 overall on Metacritic. Then for 12 years, the franchise was benched. Sure, it got ported to newer console generations, but no new sign of an entry at all. Now Dragon's Dogma 2 is a reality, and launched 2 months exactly before its 12th anniversary. Dragon's Dogma 2 is an odyssey. What the original wanted to be in 2012, Dragon's Dogma 2 realizes in 2024. It is an almost perfect game, but it's held back by its own stubbornness by refusing to amend its own shortcomings that were present in the original game 12 years ago. Without further ado, my name is Max. You're most definitely new to this channel, so welcome. Now let's find out, is Dragon's Dogma 2 worth it? Graphics. Built in the RE engine that has mainly featured the newer Resident Evil games, Dragon's Dogma 2 is breathtaking. The environments feel tangible, and the giant beasts that roam them are so finely detailed, it makes every fight a spectacle. Character models look great, and some are downright beautiful. You can even make a highly detailed custom character and a companion that you can edit to your heart's content. I personally made myself and my cat. Capcom has taken full advantage of the RE engine here, which sometimes hurts the performance of the game with frame drops in the main city of Vernworth, but I only had that happen maybe a handful of times. I found myself sometimes staring into the beautiful scenery, always wondering how far can I go before the game stops me. It's truly a beautiful looking world. The gameplay. This is the meat of Dragon's Dogma 2. You create a character and a companion known as a pawn, and can recruit up to 2 additional pawns created by other players. You pick a vocation, which masters a unique fighting style. I started as a fighter, who's like a classic sword and shield knight, but I ended the game as a magic archer who uses a bow to conjure a volley of magical spells and fires them off as if they were arrows. The great part is, you don't have to commit to any of these vocations. You could swing around a sword, and then the next minute, you could be shooting fire from your hands. The pawns are loyal to a fault, well, unless they contract the dragon's plague. They also love pointing out ladders.
Mayhap this ladder is here for a reason.
Mayhap this ladder is here for a reason.
This ladder looks sturdy enough to climb.
However, they can contract a disease that will cause them to go berserk and murder everyone. This occurs after you rest at an inn at a major city or town, and you can wake up and everyone could just be dead. This mechanic is known as the Dragon's Plague. It's kind of like the Red Scare of Dragon's Dogma 2. It doesn't really happen that much. You have to prompt a tutorial box to pop up that will tell you that the Dragon's Plague is now present in your game by telling you how the Dragon's Plague works. My advice to avoid this, recruit pawns at your level and just avoid recruiting anything that was exponentially higher than your character level. In the game, you can recruit other players' pawns, like I said. This is because a higher level pawn is more likely to have fought a dragon or a drake, and they could have contracted the disease in another player's world through that fight. So if you have not experienced a dragon fight yet, or if you're on the lower level side, just recruit pawns at your level, and you should be able to avoid this calamity, as the game calls it. You know how I said that Dragon's Dogma 2 is an odyssey? It's not because it has an incredible narrative. I mean, it is an interesting narrative, but no. It's not because of the narrative. It's built around combat. Almost every quest in the game has you fighting monsters. The roads, forests, deserts, and caves are packed with them. It's a monster-slaying odyssey. One where you may fight a minotaur attacking a city while you're trying to go shopping, and later you'll see a griffin destroy an ox cart because it's out hunting for prey. A cyclops might surprise you in the woods as it destroys trees. There are all sorts of quests. Helping an artist learn how to sculpt a griffin from rock by prolonging a battle with one so he can scribble down every detail. Helping an elf become a master archer by saving his sister from an ogre's lair. Battling a giant colossus as it destroys an island. It's all there in the game, and it's incredible. The boss fights are far and few between in this game, and you might be saying, but I see you fighting monsters all the times. Those aren't boss fights. Those monsters are everywhere. I'm talking about the actual boss fights, and I won't show them here. I didn't record most of them because they're very spoiler heavy, but I gotta say, they are the biggest form of spectacle the game has to offer. I love the progression in this game, how you start as this rag-covered adventurer with rusty weapons, as you can progress to a ultimate warrior who is powerful in magic and blades, and you can just do whatever you want. However, even a diamond can be flawed. And that is exactly what Dragon's Dogma 2 is. A flawed diamond. For every epic monster battle, there's a road swamped with smaller monsters that can just kind of grow tiresome because you have to constantly stop and fight. For every spectacular boss fight there's a long journey of traveling back and forth on foot because the convenience of fast traveling is just treated with scarcity. I don't understand why these things are still present, as seeing as this was a main criticism from the original games. Sure, the combat is fun, but getting rid of the convenience to being able to fast travel to locations, ones that you've already discovered, by the way, by relegating it to hiring an ox cart, buying a fairy stone, and the occasional recovery of a port crystal can sometimes make the game a frustrating experience. While you can set up camp to skip the dangerous night cycle and tend to your wounds, you still run the risk of having your camp ransacked by monsters and losing out on a good night's rest. It's just not fun to deal with. The game's director, Hideki Isuno, commented on how fast travel cheapens the experience of these open-world games. He told IGN in an interview earlier this year, in January, that travel is boring? That's not true. It's only an issue because your game is boring, and all you have to do is make travel fun. I don't agree with this. Your game could be endlessly fun to explore, but at one point the player is just going to want to travel to the next story point as fast as possible, and it is simply annoying to have to make a long track back to a city miles away because you don't have a fairy stone or the ox cart you hired got destroyed by a raging monster. The convenience of fast traveling in a game like this shows that the developer respects the time of the consumer. This is a great world to explore, but even for a player like me who loved adventuring through it, there was times where I just wish I could have traveled at a click of a button. But the game just simply refuses to do that. Now, I have one last grievance with the game, and I know there's a reason why other reviewers haven't talked about it, but it has to be discussed. Yes, this game has an endgame, and it is heavy in spoilers, so I won't go too deep here. I won't even show gameplay from it. But Dragon's Dogma 2 does have a surprise endgame storyline that unlocks the true ending, and it makes the game ridiculously hard. Ox carts are disabled, there's enemies around every corner, campfires no longer work, and you can only load an end save if you die. And everything is on a timer. You have to complete a series of objectives before getting the main ending, or else you just probably won't get the best version. To me, it just got annoying after a while. Like, some of the mechanics in this game need serious patchwork, like the visiting the morgue to revive a fallen allied character just doesn't work. Or at least, it's not explained well. I had to go and revive a fallen ally, and I couldn't find the body. Why? Because apparently they only stay in the morgue for about a week in-game. Was never told that. Couldn't complete a mission in the end game. Had to skip it, and basically got the worst version of the true ending from what I believe. But who knows? I still know this is kind of the true ending of the game, but I just feel a little cheated. Story. Dragon's Dogma 2 story, it's there, but it's nothing to like ride home about. But it sounds interesting. You play as the Arisen, a person whose heart is stolen by a dragon and is destined to rule the land and fell said dragon. However, your throne is usurped, and now an imposter has taken your place. You must prove that you are the true Arisen by fulfilling the dragon's dogma. Slay your dragon and take your throne. But why should you? That sounds interesting, right? But the game doesn't do much with it. You mainly help out an ally named Captain Brant by aiding his plan to prove to the kingdom of Vernworth that you are the real hero and not the imposter king on the throne. But it just doesn't go as deep as it should. There's a good amount of political intrigue here, and this world neglects to go in depth about it, and the motivations of the villains are pretty bare bones. Essentially, the main human villain of the game wants control of the pawns, the custom companions that help you in battle. However, only the Arisen can control them, but it seems that this evil sorcerer figured out the key to controlling the pawns. How? Again, that sounds really cool, that they just kind of drop it fast. The story could just be a lot deeper. I'm not asking for God of War, Ragnarok levels of storytelling, but just at least give us something. I know Capcom can tell good stories. Even with how outrageous Resident Evil games can get, at least those stories are beloved and memorable. I just don't understand why that can't be present in Dragon's Dogma 2. There really just could be more here. The overall. Should you buy Dragon's Dogma 2? If you like fantasy games and you loved games like Elden Ring and even Skyrim, then I think Dragon's Dogma 2 is the game for you. For $70, you get a lot of content, a massive world to explore, freedom to change your playstyle and experiment. And an endgame, while it's not my personal favorite, that does offer a tougher challenge for players who want to put their skills to the test. Dragon's Dogma 2 is a flawed game that is nearly a masterpiece, and I want to give it the highest score possible. I just can't. Its refusal to improve upon previous criticisms that drag down the original is what keeps it from true greatness. That's why I'm scoring Dragon's Dogma 2 as an 8 out of 10. Scoring can be weird. It's very subjective. I gave the last two games on here 7s, and I gave this one an 8. Does that mean I think it's only slightly better than those games? No, it's way better than Suicide Squad and RoboCop. That's why it's an 8. I feel comfortable recommending this game and saying it's worth its asking price. I think the asking price is fair. However, there are noticeable issues that have prevented me from giving it a 9. I wanted to give it a 9, and in fact, for 90% of my playthrough, it was a 9. However, its issues reared its ugly head to me right before the finish line, and I have to reflect that in my scoring. I am looking forward to the next chapter of Dragon's Dogma 2, but for now, I'll jump back into the game in New Game Plus and go slay some more monsters, because, like I said, that is where the game is strongest. If you want to go and just adventure and fight monsters all day, that is the game for you. It is almost the ultimate fantasy adventure. Thank you for watching this review. If you like what you saw, then consider supporting this channel by subscribing. I do all sorts of review type content. I even plan on putting out another 2 guides on Dragon's Dogma 2's vocations. And the next game on this series is going to be Tales of Kinzera Zhao. I cannot wait to play that game. It is made by the guy who played Bayek of Siwa in Assassin's Creed Origins. I loved that game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. See you then.